Hello everyone, my name is Yogesh and in today's lecture we will be discussing about factory-based design pattern. In today's lecture we will be doing practical implementation of factory-based design pattern, as well as I will be telling you a short, small theory related to design pattern as well as factory-based design pattern, so that you should be more clear about the concept. Now, before starting the lecture, in the beginning of this lecture, I would like to discuss what is design pattern. Now, design pattern are globally accepted, documented, used, and tested solution for any recurring issue faced while development in any context. Now, this definition, to generalize this definition, we can just say design pattern is solution to any recurring problem in a given context. Now, suppose as we take simple initial the design pattern which we are following from the beginning. Now we do have a situation like where we want to sort the data and search something into the list. Now for the sorting we do have different algorithm like bubble sort, selection sort, merge sort, quick sort, depending upon our requirement. So these sorting techniques are being documented as well as accepted and as well as tested. Each issues related to each algorithm is being globally documented and people knows. So these the algorithms are just in design pattern like a solution for any sorting technique, and each is been documented and been discussed all over the world. Now same coming with the searching. Suppose now we have two techniques, linear and binary search. Suppose you want to search now within the text data list, then you have to go with the linear search, and as linear search is also been documented, accepted, and tested in globally, so you can consider it as a design pattern. And same with the binary search. Suppose you want to search something in a list of numbers, then you can go with the binary search. Now the binary search is also documented and tested. So these are the common things. Like design pattern, nothing, just a solution to any recurring problem. So like sorting and searching was a recurring problem. So when it comes to the architectural solution, there are a lot of design pattern which are available in IT, in our IT business, which you can use in your project to solve any particular type of issue. Now we will be discussing this and seeing practically in the factory built design pattern, like why it was used and how it is used. Now the main question arises, do we need design pattern? Answer to this question totally depends upon your requirement and understanding of the project. The thing is, you understand your project pretty well. So if I say like this pattern is best pattern, that is not true. The thing is, each pattern, design pattern which are globally used, are having some prerequisite kind of having kind of they are solution to a particular situation. Like some if in your project you are that tackling one issue is not a big deal, instead you need to go with some other structural design pattern, then you should be going with a structural design pattern. And even if you don't want to implement any globally design pattern technique, then you can have your own design pattern to figure out your own business logic. So design pattern is not mandatory, first of all, but few patterns do provide a solution to a lot of architectural issues and make project more manageable and flexible for to get to be flexible for new development. So we will be seeing like how factory based design pattern help in some situation, and how it saves your code as well. Now before starting the design pattern, let me tell you the categories which we have for a design pattern. One is creational, second is structural, and third is behavior. Now creational patterns, from the name implies this you can say like this meant for creational thing. Now suppose you have a situation, you have different big project having different data classes which are dealing with the database. Now each class is using connection property. Now the connection object will be used by each of the class. Now there could be a situation each class method is opening their own connection and doing their requiring CRUD operation. Now suppose you want to have a centralized connection object which must be shared among all the classes. Then you are going with the centralizing the object which must be shared among the different classes as well as different client. So there you will be using some design pattern. Either it should be it could be your own, or you can be using singleton or something like that. So when you are doing anything related to the creational thing, then it comes to the creational design pattern. Now second come is structural design pattern. These are related to when it comes to the like structure of your project. Suppose you have a requirement today, like student is having address class associated with its class. Now tomorrow what you want is you want to change the relationship. You don't want like student to be dependent upon address class or using that object within the class relationship. So you are changing complete structure, the relationship between those classes. Now in the structural pattern, usually when you have a requirement like there will be a frequent change in the structure of your project, then these patterns are used. These are like little complicated than other design pattern, but still they provide a great flexibility when it comes to the like structural change in your projects. Now coming to the third, that is behavioral pattern. Now behavioral pattern relates to like object and its state. Now suppose you have a class and it has three properties, like two properties, first name and last name. And what happens is you retrieve data from the database, and you do a change into the retrieved data, and instead of updating you are thinking of like just cancelling the change what you did. Now there is a two things. First of all, for cancelling the data you will be either hitting the database again to get the original values, or your class object is having its original value with himself. Instead of going back to the database, it is keeping the original copy of the data, so that if you want to cancel the object, then it can just replace the updated data with the original data. Now a solution to kind of these comes under behavioral pattern, and the momentum pattern design pattern is one of them. So today we'll be just focusing over this factory based design pattern. So let's start. In the factory based design pattern, like factory based design pattern came into the play when there was a requirement of fixing two major issues. One is avoiding using new keyword again and again in code. Now when I am talking about avoiding the new keyword, it is not about avoiding the new keyword from everywhere. The thing is, you have a few layers, like if you have few projects, like one is having the classes, one is will be having interface, and other, and one will be doing the client implementation. Client is like web client, Windows client, or WPF client, the application which are having the user interface. Okay, so the client will be that. So we don't want use of new keyword on client side. Means on my Windows application side or web application, I don't want to create use a new keyword again and again, so that I should be querying that like creating object again and again. Instead I want user the client side code should be very easy and simple, so that they can just call a common method, and if there is a backend change into the other layers, it should not be affecting the front end. So when to remove this issue, like for avoiding use of new keyword again and again, this design pattern came into the play. And second is avoiding client to know internal class hierarchy. Now in this example what we have is we have this like if else construct. Now in this, if some condition goes true, we are initializing obj with a class A. Now if this condition go false and this condition goes true, it is initializing same object with class B. Now the problem here is the person who is coding on the client, means WPF Windows and web clients, who is doing coding there, he must be aware of with which condition which class is associated. Now when we are doing this, the person should be aware of with like to the condition and the associated class. Now we can just hide this information, like this logic, so that the we make code easy for the front end developer, so that he can just hit a common method, and he doesn't require like which class he wants to call. He just passing the parameter, and we are managing it on our layer end. So for this we want to avoid client to know internal class hierarchy instead of this. Now here the client must be aware of which class is shared with which condition. Now coming to the practical side, this is the most important. Now let me show you what I have. This is a simple example. Here I have like form having this basic salary and this officer type. Now there is some formula. If the person is selecting officer type A, his new salary will get calculated according to that logic. Now his salary is calculated, but if we select for other officer type, then his salary is calculated according to different logic. Now this is the front end, like Windows form. Now let us go from the front end, like how it is going. Now in this front end, what we are doing is we are creating an reference to an interface. Okay, now this is page generation interface, which is coming under the project page generation pay interface. Now in this interface, we are creating a reference to this interface, and then we are calling a static method of class pay calculator, which is coming under this pay calculator interface class project. Then this calculator method is returning an object of a class which is implementing this pay interface. Okay, so let us go first of all, like what I'm saying is, first we created an interface reference. So this is the interface which is implementing a get pay method. Then we are calling a method, static method, that is calculate in pay, and that calculate pay is in this class, and which is returning an reference of pay generation interface. So that is the same interface. Now in this method, what we are doing is we are managing the logic, like if the person has passed parameter like the type A, then the class A class officer object should be returned, and if we select class B, then B class officer object is returned. Now what these two classes are doing, these two classes are implementing the same interface, that is pay generation. So now what happens on the front end is, on front end the person just call this method, pass the salary and the type of the employee, and what it does, it call this method, and according to the type he has passed, it return the class object which is associated with which type, and then same object method to get pay is called, and this get pay is the method implemented in this interface. Now suppose tomorrow there is a requirement, if you just want to add one more class, like suppose you have C class officers. Now what you are, let me save little typing. Let me save a little bit of my typing code so that we can make it a little more faster. Now also let me implement this one. Okay, now this, once we added the class, I will go into this pay calculator interface, and I will be adding new case for C class. I'll say C, and I want to go for C class, C underscore C. I think let me do it, copy it. Okay, now let I did. Now let me rebuild it so that it can go. Okay, now also okay, I think I haven't added public for this class, public. Okay, now this class will be available for this one. And now for the class C, now let us modify the formula, like suppose I want to give 5% hike, and in the front end let us add one more item for the combo box to get selected. Okay, now in the front end we didn't do any special any code change. The code is same, and when we are inputting the salary, suppose this is the salary, and I go for the class C, the salary will get calculated according to the class C formula and according to the class B formula. Now see, with this architecture what we did is, we, instead of creating new object on the client, we are hiding that information under this class, that is pay calculator, within this project, and it will be returning the object the class of the related class according to the type. So suppose I select class A and I go here, it will hit here. Now the type is A. Now what it will do is, it will return the object of A class officer. Now this A class officer is implementing the same interface, that is page generation. So the same that class can come under this reference object, that is obj pay. And if we are passing the object B, like the type B, and click again, now it will go for this condition, and here also it will call this class, and this class is also implementing the same interface. So we are just returning the object of class B, and it is still going under this same reference object. And then what we are doing is we are just calling the get pay method, and if we go for the get pay method at the runtime, it will go the appropriate get pay method which we want to get hit. Now suppose for the class B, it came here, then it came into this class, and now my basic salary will calculate it as per that. So you can see, like, with this design pattern how we solve this problem. Now I know, like, you must not get clear with the logic by just showing this, so we will create the same project from the scratch. So for creating the same project, first of all we need to create the interface, the base interface, that is pay class. We will add the class array like pay interface. Now in this, let us rename it to pay interface pay generation, get information, and then I want to tell, and it will be public interface, and I want it to return double, and get pay method to implement. Okay, now once I am done with my interface, I will add one more project that will be like officer class, officer project, officer classes. Now in this I will be adding class e-class officer, yes, and then I will be implementing okay, now as I have to implement this interface, I have to add the reference to this solution. Now I will say now I want to resolve this. Okay, now once I am implementing this interface, I will be doing some tasks. Let me create one private double basic pay, and let me public a class, and I will be saying double salary, and I will be initializing basic pay with this salary. Okay, now with this what it will do, I'm just creating a constructor where the person will pass the salary, and it will be initialized to this basic pay, and here in this method I will be returning basic pay plus basic pay into 10% of the basic pay. So I will be doing some calculation here. Now as I am able to create this class, now I will be okay, let me add one more class with the same name. Copy paste. Okay, now I will rename it. I will say I want it as B class officer, and under this I will be doing the same thing, B class, and I will be implementing the same interface, but just my formula will change. Now instead of 5% I will be giving. Now as I created the two classes, I will be adding one more layer over these, and it will be kind of pay calculator. Now in this I will be declaring rename pay cal class. Okay, let us make it as that way. Now I will be making a public static method into it, which will be returning, okay, now this will be returning the same interface. So what I will do is I will add a reference to the interface project again for this class project also. So it will be pay interface dot, it will be returning the reference to the object of this class. And here I will create a method like calculate pay, and two things will come. One is double salary, and second thing which will be string of type. Okay, now I will create a switch here, and I will pass type, and I have a case when a is passed, then I have to return new class. Okay, now I have to return the class object, so I will be adding one more reference to the class project, officer classes, and my officer classes are, well, let me have this one. Okay, suppose, let me add the reference, resolve reference. Okay, now I will be copying the same, and I will be changing this to B. Here I have to change it to A. Okay, now I will be passing the salary which is passed here to the same object, and suppose for the default also let me pass default, let me pass 0. For default it should not calculate anything. So what it will do is, if the type A is passed, it will return the object A class officer object, and will pass the salary. Now in the this class constructor will initialize that salary, the pass salary with this basic pay, and when you will call this get pay method, it will be automatically calling this using this formula. So now my after this, now first I created this interface, then I created two class implementing this interface, and then I created third top layer class which is having a static method which is returning the same interface object. Now in this my first layer I will be adding, let me copy and paste a little bit of the front end. Okay, now what I will do is, I will be also, this project will also be having two reference. One is this interface and this pay calculator class, but not to this officer class. It should not be directly linking it with this officer class. It will be just implementing these interface methods. So what I will do is, I will just go and I will create a reference object obj pay, and let me remove the resolve. Okay, now what I will do is, obj pay will be calling office pay calculator dot pay cal dot calculate pay, and I will be passing value which will be convert dot to double from the text box, as well as I will be passing cmp type dot selected item dot to string. Now as I got this called, I will be just displaying message box dot show calculated salary equal to obj pay dot get pay dot to string. Okay, now this code, let us see whether this code works or not. Now here let me add this 5000, let me add breakpoints here. Oh sorry, what it is doing, let me reload it. I think something went wrong, just give me a second. No exception, and let me rebuild the project. Okay, now let's see what happens. Okay, now it hit my this interface, this class. Now it will be returning the object. Now if I go into the object, it will be initializing this basic pay salary with the salary which I passed. Then my object is returned. Now if at the runtime we will see, this will be having officer A class object, and this will be displaying us this value. Now if I go with officer B and click C, click here, and oh sorry. Mm, Now here if you see at the runtime, the class object is B class officer. So now with this factory based design pattern, you have added a layer on top of the all the implementation classes, and now on the front end, which is the client end, the client should not is not required to know like which class object to create on which condition. He is just passing the values which are required to just the condition, and call that class, like class object, to create that class object. So now with this approach, you can see like we have solved our issues. Now first issues was using new object again and again. Now as we know, in this case we are not creating any new object on client end. Now okay, now coming to this one. Now the second was like we want to avoid, sorry, I just forgot. In the second, we have a situation where we want to avoid like the client should not be aware of the classes and associated conditions. So what we have done is, again by implementing this the first layer, that is this pay calculator. Now the client is not there is no requirement for the client to know like which class it has to call with this which condition. He just passing the value which is required for the condition, and the appropriate class object is returned as per that. So now with this factory based design pattern, as you can see, like you are able to uh, fix these two issues. Now if you in this lecture, if you have any question, you can just contact me by my email ID directly, and for the source code, you can just find a link below the video. There will be a link on which you can get this source code and this slide. And also you can contact me on my Skype, as well as by with my phone number also. So keep learning, stay healthy, and also if you have any question, I really want to give me feedback. If you don't like my video, if you like my video, and if you have any question, just please be like feel free to contact me. I will be happy to answer